Hey everyone, DFA here, welcome back to the channel, and yes, 3 battleships in the shipyard, 3 Japanese battleships. The first one, the Mutsu, the second one, the Musashi, the famous Yamato class premium, and finally the Hyuga, which is a tier 7 easy class battleship. I'm going to review the 3 of them, let you know what I think and which one you should actually consider buying, and we will start with the Mutsu this week. And yeah, that thing has been in the game since almost the beginning, if I'm not mistaken. In any case, I had never tested it, so now it's time to rectify that mistake, since you can get this one for 100 copper. Should you? And how different is it from the Nagato? Let's take a look at its stats. And there we have it next to the other tier 7 Japanese battleships and a couple of references at the tier. Practically, so it gets 2 precise aiming charges, Nagato gets 3, it's a tiny bit longer, a bit less survivable as well, so it does take a bit more damage. In terms of speed, it's very similar, and it's actually not that great. 25 knots top speed, Gneisenau 30, Poltava 28, Florida 26. Yeah, this thing is a little bit slow, to be honest. Yeah, it does turn a little bit faster, but honestly not by much. And yeah, when we actually start really looking at the guns, that's when that thing is actually, falling apart a bit. Because yeah, you do get the 8 410mm guns that the Nagato has and that the Ashitaka also has. But range is pretty similar, accuracy a little bit less, and the damage per shell is also a little bit inferior. So the DPM 12,000, it's nowhere near the 14,000 of the Nagato and the Ashitaka. So yeah. What you do get in return is, okay, a little bit more secondaries, but not much, but you do get those torpedoes. Unfortunately, you're only getting 2 of them per broadside. And they're only dealing 3,200 damage, so your burst damage, yeah, not great, 6,400 for a Japanese ship. In comparison, the Gneisenau deals 9,300. But yeah, it does only have a range of 5.4 kilometers. Yours has 7.5, is a little bit more workable. And finally, the AA is non-existent, unlike the Nagato, it actually has pretty decent AA. Your AA is, yeah, it's on par with the Ashitaka. And that's not great. That's really not great. So practically it is a Nagato that drops quite a lot of gun performance, or actually battleship skills, because survivability it's a tiny bit inferior as well for these questionable torpedoes. And yeah, unfortunately my main issue with it is that, yeah, unlike the Gneisenau, this really is not fast, so getting to use those torpedoes is a challenge, but I did manage to find to get a gameplay where I was actually going to use them. So we are bottom tier, because yeah, it's a tier 8 battle, and I'm going to follow that Brandenburg with its beautiful camo. You see that absolutely no issues hitting target with precise aiming, so I mean it's still pretty much a Nagato with respects to that. And if a heavy cruiser decides to show you a nice broadside, obviously you are going to punish it, because yeah, even though the guns are slightly inferior to the Nagato, they're still pretty good indeed. So there you go. It's I would say from that perspective it still fares quite decently. And we do have an interesting situation now, where we have that Brandenburg in front of a Monarch and another battleship, and yeah, they're all going to focus on the Brandenburg, so I should be able to get close to the action and squeeze a couple of torpedoes in there. Let's see what happens. Because practically that is what you have to do with that thing. These are the kind of engagements you really have to force. But you see that, yeah, going at 20 knots, that's not super easy, and I actually got surprised there the first time. One of the first time I was using it. Yeah, those torpedoes, they do shoot one by one, so there you go. We are going to kill that Gneisenau with a torpedo hit. And yeah, let me see if I can actually do anything against that Monarch. So yeah, obviously we are CV foot, but luckily the CV is not focusing us, it's focusing on the DD. and we should be able to force an engagement with that monarch there. So at that range, the monarch will not be completely outclassing us, and we still have the Bremberg right behind, so we should be pretty good in that engagement. But keep in mind, the only thing that would classify that thing as a brawler are really these torpedoes, and you need some very, very friendly enemy battleships not to make any effort to try and dodge them, because for the rest, we're going to hit that monarch with the 2 torpedoes, because he's been very kind with us, and let's see what we can get. 51,000 damage to 57,000, 6,000 damage in total, as expected. Not really worth it in my opinion. And I think, you kind of understand the issue of the Mutsu, so it's kind of pretty much made to be used at mid to short range. It's got one less precise aiming charge than the Nagato. It typically behaves a little bit less well at range. But it doesn't really have the speed to back that up, and once you actually manage to do that, it's not like you're gaining a massive advantage, to be honest. We did squeeze a couple of engagement there at short range, but we really had to manufacture these, and it's really because the enemy battleships were actually coming towards us. If they had stayed at range, I would probably have been a damaged piñata. So the ship is, don't get me wrong, the ship is not bad, you can definitely make it work, because the Nagato is an absolutely excellent platform at tier 7. But it's a little bit more annoying. I wish it had been a bit more like the Ashitaka and gain a little bit of speed to kind of make it, a bit more enjoyable to play, because there I basically have 2 options, and neither of them is actually good. I can go hunt the enemy CV, but I do not have the AA to survive very long. And I could go face the enemy cruiser there, but it's okay. Luckily for me, it's a one-shot, but if he decides to run away or go concealed, there's absolutely zero chance for me being able to catch him. So you kind of have to plan your engagements with that thing, and be careful, because once you pick your side of the map, you're not going to be able to move around too quickly, and let's see what we can actually, if we can actually finish that cruiser now, because he's been very, very kind to us after showing us his broadside a little bit earlier in the battle. He's doing it again. Thank you very much. Sometimes it's very easy to review a ship, but jokes aside, it wasn't super easy to find footage where I was actually able to use the torpedoes, because even though it's a tier 7 ship, a lot of the time you're meeting tier 8s, Romas, Richelieus, Atlanticos, you kind of get the idea. You're obviously at a significant disadvantage in those scenarios, and unless you kind of meet a reversing Kansas, which we're actually able to catch up with, it's going to be a little bit tricky. So how shall we rate the Mutsu? Is it fun? I had a bit of frustration playing it, to be honest, because I was always trying to get into favorable positions with it, and you see, every time you start turning, you're at 22 knots, and that's really not fun at all for me. But if you don't mind that kind of gameplay, that's good for you. Is it beginner friendly? Pretty much, actually, much more than the Ashitaka, for example, because you do not have the speed to get into trouble. You can play it like a traditional battleship with the occasional push. Free-to-play friendly, for a battleship decent as well. Obviously having premium repair kits, it's going to make your life easier, but you do not need a top tier commander to make that thing work. Overall rating 2.5 stars out of 5. For 100 copper, even though copper is a resource you can get fairly easily, I think there are probably better opportunities out there. So that's it for the review of the Mutsu. Next week you will be getting the Hyuga before it goes out of the shipyard, I promise you that. And finally we will conclude the series with the Musashi. How strong is it still in 2025? Let's find out. Stay tuned, bye bye, that was DFA signing out.